You're not going to hear this from mainstream Catholic media, but let's be blunt. Cardinal Robert Francis Prevost becoming Pope Leo XIV is a seismic shift, not because of some heartwarming American Pope fairy tale, but because this is about raw power, global influence, and who really gets to shape the spiritual, political, and financial direction of the largest religious institution on earth. Born in Chicago, trained in theology in Rome, deployed to Peru as a missionary, on paper, this guy checks all the boxes, but let's not get distracted by the resume. The fact that an American now sits on the papal throne is not just symbolic, it's strategic. This is the Vatican opening its gates to the most powerful empire in modern history, and don't think for a second that's accidental. The Catholic Church is not a monastery, it's a geopolitical force, and installing an American Pope in 2025 at a time when global narratives are being restructured, when nation-state loyalties are collapsing, when Western institutions are desperate to reassert dominance, this is a clear message. The Church is aligning itself tighter than ever with the machinery of Western power. Leo XIV is fluent in 5 languages, yes, but the one that matters most right now is the language of soft imperialism. The Vatican isn't just playing the religion game, it's playing global chess. And Prevost just became the new bishop on the board. And here's where it gets real. He's not some fresh face. This man has been in the inner circle for decades, embedded in Peru, long enough to build a loyal following, while avoiding the spotlight that comes with being too close to Rome. It's the perfect cover play, the humble missionary while climbing the ranks in stealth mode. But people forget that while he was in Peru, Prevost was accused of mishandling allegations of child abuse involving 2 priests under his jurisdiction, 3 young girls, 2 separate incidents. And what did Prevost do? He delayed, he softened. The report. He passed the buck to Rome with vague language. These aren't conspiracy theories. This is documented by survivors, whistleblowers, and people inside the diocese who watched it happen in real time. And the Vatican rewarded him with a promotion. That's not accountability, that's insulation. That's what the system does for its most loyal agents. The media won't touch it because they're too busy celebrating diversity in leadership. But let's cut through the noise. A man who couldn't act decisively in the face of documented abuse is now the supreme moral authority for 1.3 billion Catholics. You think that's not a calculated risk by the Vatican? They don't care about optics, they care about control. And Prevost, he's controllable, he's predictable, he's trained, and more importantly, he owes them. Every step of his rise has been paved by favors, silence, and politics. That's why they picked him, not because he's holy, because he's useful. Now let's talk about the power play behind the scenes. The conclave that elected him wasn't a divine intervention, it was a war room. Cardinals aren't just voting their conscience, they're protecting alliances. Pin and Teagle were top contenders, but Prevost had the American bloc, and you better believe that bloc flexed. The US bishops, despite their endless internal conflicts, finally agreed on something. It was time to own the Vatican seat, and they delivered. They packaged Prevost as the compromise candidate, low scandal visibility, moderate on doctrine, and just conservative enough to keep traditionalists calm while still playing nice with the media. Perfect puppet, perfect timing, and let's not pretend this is just about faith. Look at the geopolitical map. The Catholic Church is hemorrhaging believers in Europe. Latin America is shifting toward Pentecostalism. Africa is unpredictable. Asia is locked down, but North America still full of influence, tech, and money. By placing an American on the throne, the Vatican just re-secured its relevance in the West. They're not saving souls, they are saving market share. And Prevost's background? Oh, he's Austinian, that means hierarchy, obedience, and chain of command. That's the kind of structure Rome loves. No wild cards, no revolutionaries, just clean, loyal, bureaucratic efficiency. The same kind of institutional mindset that's covered up scandal after scandal for decades. That's not a coincidence. That's the vetting process. Now he's Pope Leo XIV, and the media is selling you a redemption arc. Humble missionary becomes leader of the Catholic world. Spare me. Humility doesn't get you to the top of the most secretive election in the world. Raw leverage does. Political backroom deals, a spotless public image built on silence and compromise. That's the real story. This is not spiritual awakening. This is brand management. And the timing, uncanny. Right when the Vatican is under pressure for transparency, right when new abuse revelations are surfacing in Latin America, Europe, and Africa, they drop a papal election like a media bomb, distract the public with a new face, while the files keep getting buried. It's Vatican 101. When things get too hot, change the figurehead, reset the narrative, and they've done it again. Robert Faust didn't stumble into the papacy. He was groomed for it, selected not because he would challenge the machine, but because he would preserve it. And now he wears the white robe, not as a shepherd, but as a symbol of how far the church will go to protect itself, rebrand itself, and control the story. Welcome to the new papacy. Same system, new face. During his time as bishop in Chiclayo, Peru, Faust faced a situation where 3 young girls accused a local priest of sexual abuse. You'd think any sane leader, especially in a church already drowning in abuse scandals, would slam the brakes on everything and immediately take that priest out of commission. That's not what happened. Instead of launching a full investigation, Faust handled it quietly, internally, selectively. He passed partial information to the Vatican. That's not transparency, that's damage control, the kind of move you make when you want to contain a PR nightmare, not seek justice. Even worse, the accused priest continued to operate within the church. That's not a mistake, that's not being uninformed, that's a choice, and it wasn't an isolated incident. This wasn't some one-off event buried in the chaos of mission work. This was a pattern. When Faust was provincial of the Augustinians in Chicago, he gave residence to a priest with a confirmed history of sexually abusing minors, and not just anywhere. He was allowed to stay in a monastery close to a Catholic high school. Think about that. A man with known predatory behavior placed within walking distance of children. You think that was an accident? The church has rules, canon law, procedures, internal systems, but none of those matter if the man in charge ignores them or worse, uses them to shield abusers. And that's exactly the behavior survivors and watchdog groups have been documenting for decades. That's what you get with Faust, a Vatican insider who played the same game that's been running since Boston, since Ireland, since Chile. Handle it internally, move the problem, don't talk to the police. It's rinse and repeat. And he's been doing it long enough to know the playbook by heart. You've got people out here acting like this is some groundbreaking moment, an American Pope, diversity, inclusion. No, this isn't progress. This is brand management. The church knows it can't afford another financial collapse tied to lawsuits. They need someone who can navigate the headlines, talk to lawyers, manage survivors, and keep the institution running. Faust isn't the guy who tears down walls. He's the guy who paints over cracks and smiles for the camera. And let's be clear, none of this is speculation. The survivors network of those abused by priests, SNAP, called him out. Advocacy groups in New Zealand, Latin America, and the US all raised red flags after his election. These aren't fringe movements, these are survivors and experts who've been tracking abusers and enablers for decades. When they say this man shouldn't be Pope, that's not a protest, that's a warning. You want more facts? When he was questioned about the priest he harbored in Chicago, Faust said he was monitoring him. That's the church's favorite word, monitoring, like they've got surveillance cams and ankle bracelets on these guys. They don't. Monitoring means we trust him not to rape again. And history has shown over and over that trust gets kids hurt. So, when Vost says he was watching the situation, what he means is, I rolled the dice and don't expect accountability. So, what does this mean for the average Catholic? For those who still believe in the Church's promise of redemption and moral leadership? It means brace yourself for more of the same, dressed in new robes but with the same agenda. Expect policies to remain rigid, expect transparency to remain a myth, and expect the silence around abuse to persist behind the grand gestures of peace and unity that the Vatican loves to display on the global stage. The election of Robert Francis Prevost as Pope Leo XIV is a reminder that power in the Catholic Church is rarely about holiness or reform. It's about survival, control, and the relentless pursuit of influence. The question is, how long will the faithful tolerate it